Karen,
Yes.
we both grew up in Catholic traditions, right?
Yes, we did.
Now, were you subjected to a lot of dogma in your upbringing
At school.
at school?
Not at home, but at school.
And not at the church?
We didn't go to church a whole lot.
Oh, so it was just a school religious
It was
background for you.
a school. I mean, we went to church at school and then we went on the holidays.
So you were a holiday Catholic.
I was a typical Catholic.
Gotcha. Well, I also, we actually went to church on Sundays, and I had a lot of programming when I was involved in the church growing up.
You did.
So much so that I think I might still be feeling some of the effects today of that programming. I can't help but feel that had I not had that dogmatic programming while I was a kid, I might be a lot more advanced on the spiritual path that I'm on now.
Well, you had like a crazy intense. I had never heard of such thing until you told me.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it on the show one day.
Yeah.
But then, sadly, this fear seems to be the prevailing feeling in so many people that have grown up with religious upbringings. So the question is, how do you overcome the struggle that comes with wanting to come out of the spiritual closet because of religious trauma or judgment? Right? Nobody wants to be looked at weird or burned at the stake. Right?
Truth.
Well, this is just a sliver of what we're about to cover on this episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Hello, everyone, to another episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians, the podcast that delves into the mysteries of life, spirituality, and personal growth. I'm your host, Will, and with me today, as always, is my divine co-host and life partner, Karen.
Hello.
Today, we have a truly fascinating guest joining us with a background in running a metaphysical shop and wellness center in Minnesota. She made a bold move to the heart of the Bible Belt, Oklahoma. Now she's here today to share her unique insights on the stark differences she's observed in the spiritual communities and how they navigate the diverse spiritual beliefs they encounter. Welcome to the show, Jenn Bierma. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to be here. You have no idea. Well, I'm nerve-sighted. I will say that. I'm a little bit nervous.
I don't think you should be nervous at all, but
I adore you guys so much. You have no idea. Like
Oh.
when I started doing podcasts on my own with a friend of mine, I was looking for people who were doing the same thing. And I found you guys. And I'm just so excited because what you are doing is the energy that I hope that a lot of people get to experience when they're listening to different podcasts. So I'm just really excited to be with you guys.
that means so much to us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jen. That's incredible. Let's dive right in. Right? Moving from Minnesota, a place where metaphysics and spirituality may have been more openly embraced, to Oklahoma, where religious beliefs held a really strong presence. It must have been quite a journey.
Yes, it was. I walked through a lot when I was growing up in the spiritual realm in Minnesota. I got through a lot of my fear there. So I went through all the religious persecution and all of those other things while I was there. And I got real comfortable after years being open in that community. And then I ended up moving down here. And I don't know how many times I have heard, well, I walk with the Lord. And I'm like, I do too, just in a different way. So it's been really interesting to watch the way that people interact and the things that they say. And I've had a really good opportunity since I've been down here. I'm a very chatty Cathy. I will talk to anybody and I'll ask them questions about their spirituality, about their religion. And so I've had the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with people who are in very religious settings or they have a very strong religious background. And I've actually had a lot of people open up to me and say, you know what? I've never really talked to anybody who has your spiritual beliefs. I've just been told that you're the devil and that I'm not supposed to talk to you. Like, I've had people say that to me.
Wow.
And like, my heart breaks. But at the same time, I'm like, that's their belief. And I'm grateful that they can say that to me and not feel the judgment or feel the fear about saying like where they're at. I'd rather have the conversation so we can both come to a place like in the middle.
It makes sense. At least they're open to the conversation, where sometimes a lot of those really ultra religious people won't even have the conversation. They just think you're the devil, going to burn you to the stake, you're going to go to hell, I want nothing to do with you. And then there's no way to talk to them. Not that we're proselytizing, but I mean, then there's the other side where they actually, you're wrong. I'm gonna have to change you and bring you to God.
And you were a little bit like that on the opposite side, Will.
I don't know what you're talking about.
First started out.
Blah, 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 blah. I'm not hearing anything. Blah, blah, blah.
It was interesting though. We had a similar kind of culture clash when we moved here. We're in Virginia now. And we moved from Florida. And I remember it was probably the first couple of months, we didn't know anybody. And everyone we met, okay, maybe not everyone, but maybe 98% of the people we met within the first 3 sentences of a conversation were like, oh, what church do you go to?
What church do you go to?
It was so different than anything we'd had experienced before. So I kind of get that.
And you should have seen the reaction when I said, I go to the Church of Will. I got some crazy stares, but But it's true. I have my own religion. I have my own thought process. And there's nothing wrong with that in my estimation. I had a friend in high school who actually cried when she said to me that she loved me, but she knew I was going to hell because I didn't believe in the stuff she believed in, which was really hard to take because she's a really good friend. And just because I don't believe what you believe, I'm going to hell. Because, but I love you. And I just, pray for you every day. Well, thank you for the prayers, but holy smokes.
And the good thing is we don't really believe in hell, so it's okay.
there is that. Yeah.
But enough about us.
Well, growing up, actually, my best friend from childhood, her family was very religious. I believe they were Catholic. I'm pretty sure they were Catholic. And they used to have her pray for me every night.
Wow.
And I didn't know this until I was older. And when we finally talked about it, she said, do you know what I prayed? I prayed that we'd end up in the same place when we died. She's like, I didn't pray what they were asking because she's like, I don't understand.
Wow. Well, she better hope it's not hell you're ending up in.
Yeah. Well, at least it'll be fun, right?
You'll have your friend there.
I hear the wine's good.
That's awesome. How did you overcome that?
Well, so what I started doing when I got down here is I started reaching out to every person that even sounded like they might be part of the metaphysical community, part of the spiritual community. And I just started reaching out and saying, hey, I'm moving here. I'm trying to find community. And I was shocked how many of those people were like, you're just calling random people and saying these things out loud. And I was like, yes. And they're like, do you know what happens? Like if you post to social media about Reiki or you get banned. Like everybody gangs up on you. You do not talk about this stuff. Our community does not talk about this stuff. You don't just go up to people and start talking about this. And I was like, well, I'm not from here, so I'm going to do me. Like, I'm going to do this because, like it's that intense. And so I just continued doing that, just reaching out to people. And I ended up finding a spiritual center that has all kinds of different alternative practitioners. They do sound healing and talk about Lemurian crystals and extraterrestrials and chant and do all the woo-woo things that I do. And so I started getting involved in that community. And then Spirit came in and said, Jenn, you are always placed in these places where you can make a bigger impact and you can bridge that gap between different spiritual realms. And you can help people to see that you're no different. You just believe differently. And so it's always on my heart to just be a good person, just get involved in the community, be a good person. And so after that message kept coming in, because sometimes I'm a little bit dense and I'm like, nope, I'm going to stick to the people that I know are going to accept me here. After I finally started to accept that, I went and got involved in the chamber and I went and started doing all these things. And that's where I really started having the conversations where people were like, I don't understand. You're such a good person. And I'm like, what?
Yes, I am.
I'm like, exactly. That is the exact point that I want to make. It's like, just because we believe differently doesn't make one of us a bad person and one of us a good person, or one of us going to hell and one of us going to heaven. So it's allowing yourself to be open to those experiences and moving forward.
And I wonder sometimes how really, when it comes down to the actual core of the beliefs, how really different are they? It's kind of like, and I'm kicking myself because I'm trying to think of the name, but the original, Lion King, that was based off of what play? was it Shakespeare? It was like
Oh.
King
Like the
Lear or
Lion
something
King.
like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
So same story, totally different. You could not get a kid to sit through King Lear. You
No.
know, I mean, it's the same kind of different characters, different this and that, but ultimately the core is pretty much the same, which I think, love, community, helping each
Mhm.
other, all of those,
Yeah.
that's the core of it. And I think that's the same, even though it looks completely different.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it doesn't even look completely different. It's just that people have been taught that it does. So, like when you break things down and you actually look at it, most of the time it is the same principles. Like it really is the same principles. It's just slightly shifted in focus,
Yeah.
or there's another belief in there, like these people aren't allowed to do this and these people aren't allowed to do that. Or so,
Yeah. We just
yeah.
released not long ago an episode about Edgar Casey, and he was a devout Christian who
Yeah.
was the godfather of metaphysics, right? The sleeping prophet. The guy was a devout religious man, and yet
Yeah.
he mixed these two worlds perfectly. So it can
Yeah.
be done. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of whether someone's willing to actually take the time to do it or steps to
Exactly.
do it.
Exactly. And it's beautiful when you can create those communities where there's people who have different beliefs or can teach each other or help you experience something different.
Right.
And that's part of my goal here, is to give people space so that they can experience different belief systems. They can experience different things. They can explore who they are without feeling like they're going to be persecuted for it, or without feeling like it's a horrible thing for them to look elsewhere to
The-
fill their heart.
Now, how long ago did you move?
So I moved down here last May.
Okay, so
So,
like a year, like
Yep.
very recent.
yep.
Have you found a lot of people that are open to these conversations, or have you more found that the banning side of things?
I have not been banned anywhere yet.
Okay, that's a
Oh,
plus. That's a plus.
I don't know if it's because they like that I help out at events and do other things, but
She's a
I'm
good
just gonna
worker.
keep doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the only one who'll do the dishes. Just leave her alone.
Yeah. So I've found different pockets of communities. I've found some spiritual communities that I've gotten involved in so that it's not like a constant conversation. But I've also found a lot of people that are like, okay, like now that we've gotten the weird parts out of the way, we've had this conversation about how I think you're going to hell, and like we've talked about it, we've walked through it. It's fine. Like it was very interesting the first time I came down here and went to a chamber meeting in the morning. Like the first thing that they do is they do a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not expecting that at a chamber meeting. And so I was like, oh, and I'm fine with that. But I was like, what?
Yeah, you totally should have gotten up and called the corners. For those who don't know, calling the corners is it's a Wiccan tradition, a pagan tradition. How you start the rituals, you bring in the 4 elements and all that kind of. But anyway,
Mhm.
that would have been really, really interesting how how they would have reacted to that.
Wow.
So it's been interesting because as I've been at more of these meetings, I talk about like mindset, and I talk about positivity, and I talk about energy. And I don't go too woo-woo in the actual meetings.
Mhm.
But I've had people approach me and say, tell me more. Tell me more about this. So they'll ask me
Right.
questions, and then I hand them a card and it says intuitive on the back of it in one spot. And
Mhm.
every time all of them go, oh. And then they like stick the card in their pocket and they're like, yeah, we'll talk later. They'll just walk
They're like,
away.
Nobody's watching. Okay.
So it's one of those things where they have a reaction to some of the words, but they're very curious about the energy behind it and the loving messages that are coming through. And so that's one of the things I always talk about people when you're coming out of the spiritual closet. Talk to people where they're at. Like nobody's going to argue with you when you start talking about the love that you feel for people. Nobody's going to come at you when you say loving and kind things. So
Mhm.
bring in those things first. Like
Mhm.
bring them into that energy and interact with them in that space first. And then when the other questions come up, they already know like who you are at a heart level,
Mhm.
rather than coming at you immediately with, oh my gosh, you're a psychic. Oh my gosh, you're this. Oh my gosh, you're that.
Mhm.
It's more about who you are and who your character is rather than what your beliefs are at that point.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is that you have to be willing to be crammed into a closet with someone to have these conversations so that it doesn't get out in the open too soon.
Maybe it's just a little corner. It's like behind the bookshelf. I wouldn't say the closet because they're kind of coming out of the closet.
Well,
But just a little.
yeah, but you got to join them in the closet so that they can feel comfortable, right, in their
Yeah.
closet. But
Yeah, make sure you have the right coat size for them. Just
See, now I'm thinking about South Park.
yeah. Oh boy, we are going down some weird roads here. I'm not sure where the universe wants us to go, but I'm having a ton of fun, Jenn, talking to you. And we haven't even touched on the fact that you are a medium and a lot of other stuff. We need to take a break, but when we come back, this conversation is just starting to heat up now. So stay with us, because when we come back, we're going to talk to Jenn about her gifts and how she's using those in this spiritual closeted region of the country. Stand by. We are back. We're talking to Jenn Bierma, who moved from Minnesota, who was somewhat open to metaphysics and spirituality, to Oklahoma, which is in the middle of the Bible Belt, and suddenly found herself having to jump herself into a closet to talk to people about spiritual subjects so that they weren't burn her at the stake. Jenn, I've been having such a fun time chatting with you. We haven't touched on the fact that you are actually a medium. You channeled all kinds of entities and ETs and things like that. Has that come out in Oklahoma that you do these things?
Well, it's on my website. It's on my business cards. I have had conversations with clients who've come in for massage. I'm a massage therapist as well. I lead with that here.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But people will ask me questions about it and then they kind of shy away from it here. I, for a really long time in Minnesota, I didn't talk about that part of what I did. I would talk about the intuitive piece when I was doing massage, when I was working, I would talk about that. But I wouldn't approach the fact that I talk to Jesus on a regular basis, that I have different guides who come in and speak through me. And sometimes they would give messages to clients and clients had no idea that somebody else was coming through. It's one of those things where if it's meant to come up, I'll let it come up. If Jesus wants to give a message to somebody, he's welcome to do that. And it's been really interesting when I've had people who were really skeptical come in and really fearful of the things that I do. I've had several times where Jesus has stepped in and said, "Can you please tell this person this?" And I deliver that message and everything changes.
In a good way or
in a good way?
Oh,
In a
that's
good way.
Because my initial thought would be someone who doesn't really believe in this stuff in Oklahoma in the Bible Belt. You say Jesus is telling me to tell you this, coming through me, they go, "Oh, you are definitely the devil," because only people that can talk to Jesus are priests, right?
Well, unless it's something that they needed to hear and that they were praying about that morning. And that's typically what happens is if I allow myself to be in a vulnerable space and allow myself to bring those messages through, because that's a huge part of it. Like if I'm feeling scared that they're going to judge me, I might not allow it to come through. And then these beautiful things don't happen. Right. But when I allow myself to be in that space and give the messages that are coming through, everything changes. It's a game changer.
So now you're bringing up Jesus. And a lot of people, I think, would find that as that's a bridge that makes it okay. But a lot of people, might think differently. How would you define Jesus? That Jesus that's coming to you? Is it the traditional, Son of God Jesus, or is Jesus just a teacher? Like
a little bit of all of those things. So my teachings that I have received are that the traditional Jesus that's in the Bible isn't 100% accurate. There's a lot of perception that was placed into those stories. There's a lot of belief that is wrapped around all of the stories that are in the Bible that isn't 100% accurate, but it was a way to connect with the people in those times, as is everything that is taught spiritually at this point. It's a way to connect with people and bring them back to source energy. So while I believe that the Jesus of the Bible existed, there are aspects of that I do not believe are accurate. When I do talk to him, he does confirm that not everything that is there is accurate. And so he is a being who is here to teach us, who is meant to bridge that gap and bring us back to our source energy. So bring us back to God, whatever name you give that. And he has, when I met him, I didn't know who he was. As a child, I was not in religion, but a lot of my family was, and I was judged because of that. I don't know how many times as a child I was told I was going to hell. And so my thought of Jesus as a child was that he is going to be there to help the judgment. He's going to be there to be mean to me because I'm a horrible person and I'm going to hell. And so as a child, when I was introduced to him, another spirit that I spoke with when I was a child introduced me to him as Jay, not as Jesus.
Did he have a backwards cap on?
He did not. I wish he would have. Now I'm going to ask him to dress like that when he shows up. But I didn't know that it was Jesus because his presence was very different than the presence that I was given from the beliefs of people around me. And so as I got to know him more, I actually found out who he was still as a child, but I was angry. I was angry that he lied to me. I was angry that I didn't know who he was. And it was a big deal for me. And so my relationship with him has been very strong since I was a child. I just didn't know that's who it was. And so as I get older and people question my relationship with Jesus and my relationship with God, my relationship with Source, I always go back to, as a child, he would come to me and say, you know the truth. You know where you're going. Like, you are on a path of love and peace. You are not going to hell. Like, he would remind me all the time as a child. And that is the energy that I wish to impart to other people. Like, when they do have questions and they have concerns about me talking about Jesus and me having a relationship with Jesus, so many people have come to me and said, I want to understand how to have a relationship like that. Like, once they understand that my relationship isn't one of blasphemy and like just saying everything is wrong about the church, because that's not at all what I believe. It creates a different experience and it creates a different conversation with people around that. But I do believe that the Jesus that I talk to is a little bit of all of that.
Right. That makes great sense. And Karen and I are both big believers that there's a lot of different paths out there. Religion, Christianity, happens to be one of those paths, or actually it's one of many paths, right? There's many paths inside of Christianity. But regardless, if it speaks to you, if Jesus is this person that you really have a relationship with and it works for you, then we say, go for it. We support you 100%. The challenge with us is when someone tells us that that's the only path. That's where we have a problem. So have you encountered a lot of that where you are on the wrong path and we need to get you back into the fold?
With people saying that about me or me feeling that way on my own?
Either one.
I've had other people tell me that, where they think that I'm on the wrong path. I've had many people ask to do exorcisms. I've had many people
get out of here.
Yeah, in Minnesota, I had
exercise you.
Yep, I had a couple of those when I was younger. Those were always interesting conversations.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I might have just done it just to see what happens.
Stuff a bunch of pea soup in your mouth.
Well, I didn't want to make it worse. But no, so I had a lot of those conversations where people were very judgmental about it. I've never felt like I was on the wrong path. Like, that's just not been part of my experience. I've always known. I mean, when you constantly have people in your ear telling you, hey, like, check yourself right now. Like, what are you thinking? What are you believing? It makes it a little bit easier when you listen.
And so you're a medium, but you don't do mediumship readings. Is there a reason for that?
There is. I had a lot of trauma around that as a child. And so there was a lot of fear for a long time. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want the people saying, prove it, prove it, prove it. Spirit has come in many times and said, you know what, that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to be a game for people. We're not going to prove it if they ask us to prove it. which I argue with them every time. I'm like, you're making me look like really bad. Just come and tell them. But I have learned in the last probably 5-6 years that sometimes people hold on to their loved ones after they passed so much that they continually seek out mediums to speak to their loved ones, and it keeps them stuck. And there are so many other tools that I have and so many other opportunities that I have to work with people to help them heal, that sometimes bringing in the mediumship piece is not the piece that they need, because then they're going to rely on that because they know that they can always go back and talk to that person through somebody else.
Mhm.
I'd rather teach people how to interact on their own and how to feel and sense what's going on around them, rather than be the constant conduit that they're coming back to, paying money to do something that they could do themselves.
Mhm.
Now, is that akin to like a psychic development or mediumship development course that you offer them? So you teach people how to channel their own loved ones.
Yep. So I've started doing that recently. I used to do it, just talk to people about it. I'm somebody who tries to help people any way that I possibly can. If they come to me, I'm going to teach them what I can teach them. I'm a teacher by nature, and I just love helping people. So people have been asking me for years to develop a program. So I'm in the beginning phases of that right now, to help people so that they don't have to come to me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a message that we get from a lot of the people that we talk to. Everybody has this ability. You just have to
Mhm.
connect. What would you say is the biggest block that people have that keeps us from being able to connect?
I think the biggest block is their own fear. People are so afraid that if they do connect, they're either going to get it wrong, they're going to be judged, or they're going to open up something that they can't close. Like, that's the biggest thing I've heard from so many people. If I open this up, what if I can't close it? What if I get overwhelmed? What if I get too much information? And you can always close it. Once you know how to open yourself and close yourself off, you can always close that down if you don't feel comfortable with it.
That's interesting. I'm in the other camp where, yeah, bring it. Come
know,
on.
right?
Why aren't you bringing it? Come on. What the heck? Right? I get frustrated. I'm much more of a, I don't know if I believe this. I mean, I'm think I'm making this up. So,
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. How do you know that it's actual messages, that you're not just making it up?
yeah, it's
How
not
do you
make,
tell?
yeah.
So when I'm channeling, so when I actually allow people to speak through me, the words are so much different. The mannerisms are different. I record any sessions that I do online. So I've had the opportunity to go back sometimes and look at it, and I'm like, who is that? Oh my gosh, what is going on?
That's awesome.
But it was kind of testing it out, like allowing myself to give messages to people. And then every time that somebody'd say it was accurate, okay, that's another check mark. That's another check mark.
Mm.
So it's really just practice. I mean, anything that you do, you're not going to trust that you do it well until you've done it enough and you've practiced.
Right.
Makes sense.
And I suppose when other people tell you, yes, you completely changed, you had different demeanor about you, your words were different, it didn't fit what you typically say.
Yeah.
When you get enough of that positive reinforcement, you start to go, okay, maybe there's something here. Right?
Yeah. And I'm not a very good actress. I'm horrible at it. So like for me to like try to do those things, there's no way in heck that I would do
Right.
that. No way, because I get very shy. I'm like,
What?
oh gosh, I look silly. I know I look silly. Well, I would not be the person who's in theater. I would not be the person who's on, like I can talk, but you ask me to act, no way.
And it's funny because we hear that a lot from a lot of people, like scientific people going, yeah, this is bad shit crazy, but it's coming out of my mouth. I don't understand it either. Right? To me, it seems like it's crazy to me, but yet there it is. There is a spirit baby sitting in the corner and I very clearly see it.
Mhm.
How do you discern that? Like, how do you talk about shutting it off? We've heard time and time again that this entity is here and it's not leaving me alone. I need an angel to come help get that entity off of me. Should you not attempt to do this until you learn how to close it off? Are you opening it up some sort of can of worms?
I mean, it depends on your own boundaries and what you know about yourself. A lot of the time when people have these experiences and they have a lot of fearful experiences or they have attachments, they have things that are coming into their lives, they're allowing it at some level. So most of the time, it is teaching yourself to trust yourself and to set boundaries for yourself. Usually, if you have poor boundaries in the spirit realm, you also have poor boundaries in the human realm. So if you're seeing something in the spiritual world, it's probably a mirror for you on the way that you're interacting in your life and internally. Looking at what's going on for you internally is going to help you manage the spiritual stuff more completely.
And if you're not really good at setting boundaries, you can just use what I use, which is avoidance. I avoid bad situations and bad people.
Again, now we're back to la 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 la.
Hey, it works for me. Then I would avoid the bad spirits and just,
I'm not listening to you.
You're not there.
But it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, and so the other piece of that, though, is being very strong with your knowing. Like knowing that you don't want this to be part of your life. You don't want this specific entity or this specific spirit stepping into your life, and being very clear on that and setting that boundary and holding that boundary. And that's where a lot of people waver, is they'll say, oh no, I don't want this being to be here. But then at some level, they're gaining something from that. It's either they're gaining some type of interaction with people around them where they're getting soothing, they're getting calming. Like there's a lot of things that we can gain from perceived negative experiences. And if you don't know yourself and you don't know that you are seeking something else outside of you, those things are going to continue happening until you're firm in your boundaries and you're firm in knowing yourself.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely does.
That explains everything for me. I have no boundaries, so damn it.
Avoid.
Well, we've already talked about the fact that you're a medium, but you're an author, you're a massage therapist, an intuitive massage therapist, you're a psychic healer, you're an intuitive artist. You do all kinds of stuff. So I want to touch on one of them specifically, and that, and you're also a podcast host, right? You have a podcast about the woo with a partner.
Yep.
First of all, what's the name of the podcast? We can put it on the show notes for you.
It's called They Call Us Woo. WOO.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was like Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
They call us Woo.
Why I spelled it out.
All right, but you're also an author, and the book that you wrote is astounding to me. It's one that I'm actually going to get because it sounds right up my alley. It's called A Life Lived Medium, a psychic's journey from fearful to almost fearless. And it kind of recounts your story growing up, having access to these gifts and having to deal with these kinds of things. What led you to write this book?
So I actually didn't write it to publish it. I wrote it to get out my own emotions and learn from my experiences. And I started writing. And then I went to an event at my attorney's office. She had me doing chair massage there. And there was a woman in my chair. And this man, the spirit came in and he kept telling me, he kept bugging me the whole time she was there. And I'm like, I am in a professional setting. I am not delivering messages right now.
Jen, you need to set boundaries.
Because it doesn't sound like you could go anywhere there.
I was trying to do that. And he just kept on. He's like, you need to tell her this. You need to tell her this. You need to tell her this. So I delivered this message to her after she got off my chair. And she just started crying. And she said to me, she goes, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, no, but I've been writing some stuff. And she's like, I'm a publisher and I want to publish your book.
Ooh.
And I was like, well, crap, that went. Like,
universe said, you are going to have a book. You have no choice in the matter.
And I've wanted to write a book since I was a child, but I was never somebody who did a lot of reading. My grandma was a librarian. Everybody in my family read, and I didn't. So I felt like it wasn't okay for me to write a book because they needed their opportunity first because they put in the work reading. And I don't know where I got that idea, but I did. And so when she brought that up to me, I was like, okay, I guess this is my time. And so I went home and I continued writing. And when the editor got it. She messaged me and she said, Jenn, you're censoring yourself. There's pieces missing here. And I was like, I wrote everything that I remember. And I was kind of upset. And so I put it away for like 9 months. And then I went back to it one day, and my guides and spirit came in and they're like, it's time for you to start actually looking at these memories. And so I sat in my meditation room sobbing for like 8 hours.
Oh, I think you're doing it wrong.
Well, I think I did it right, because I finally started actually looking at some of the most traumatic moments of my spiritual experiences as a child, and started remembering other pieces, and started seeing who was in the room with me and the support that I actually had. And it was so cathartic for me, and it was so helpful in my process moving forward. I finished my book in that session, sent it back off to the editor. She sent it back to me with all kinds of red marks because she said, you write like you speak and you're horrible with grammar. But I got it published. And once I published it, I was like, if anybody reads it, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I got it out there. I got to heal. And I had so many people reach out to me afterwards and say, this is exactly what I needed. Like, I've had these experiences since I was young, and nobody will talk to me about it. And this is so helpful. And that was like the best thing that I could have heard. It was the best thing that could have happened with me publishing that. Although now everybody thinks they know everything about me because they've seen these really vulnerable spots of my life. But still, it was worth it.
Well, it was interesting that your publisher knew intuitively that you were not disclosing some things. So it sounds like that person has some hidden talents themselves. Have you kind of prodded them in that, hey, I've got a psychic medium class coming up soon?
No, but it was actually the editor, and I haven't talked to her for a long time, and she was very open. So
that's interesting.
She might be somebody I reach out to again.
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend it. So yeah, I'm going to definitely get the book because it sounds right up my alley. But on top of being an author, an intuitive massage therapist, and all these, a medium we already talked about, you do this type of healing, which I've never heard of before. You kind of mix a bunch of different things together. Massage therapy, energy work, shamanic healing, sound therapy, channeling. I mean, holy smokes. How did you start bringing all these things into one healing session?
All in one.
All in one, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like a fruit salad.
Yeah. Oh, that's better.
I am a little fruity sometimes.
Yeah, just a lot of great elements that come out into a delicious kind of product.
You would never know Karen cooks, huh?
From the heart, baby.
So when I was in Minnesota, I didn't want to tell everybody about my gifts. So I would start integrating things into massage. Like I said, down here, I lead with massage first. Massage was my cover in Minnesota for a very long time, until I could no longer hide, because spirit was coming in so clearly. Like, you tell this person now. And I had poor boundaries back then. But so I started incorporating some of that work into the sessions that I was doing, because spirit was coming in so clearly for me, saying, this person needs sound healing. This person needs to hear this message. This person needs this. And so I just started incorporating it into my massage sessions. And I ended up with a really strong following in Minnesota, because people knew that they could come to me and receive exactly what they were needing in that moment, rather than just a massage. Not to say that massage isn't awesome, because I love massage, but
who doesn't?
Like, sometimes people need more in that session. And if I can provide that service for them, and I can provide something that's going to help them heal more quickly, I'm going to do that.
Right.
So when I have a client on the table, if they're open to receiving something other than massage, I will ask their guides, I will ask spirit to come in and provide whatever we need for that session.
Okay. So you actually ask them if they're open to it. It's not like, oh, what was that kind of thing?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
They know what they're signing up for before they get on the table.
You don't be laying there naked and all of a sudden, whoa.
People are drumming around you. Yeah.
Karen,
what's happening?
Oh, so it is one of those things where I connect in with their guides. I ask their higher self for permission. I'll talk to them ahead of time. They usually know if they're signing up for that type of session. Here in Oklahoma, I have 2 separate services. I have massage services, and I have my intuitive massage services and my cosmic realignment services. So like I have different services they can choose from, so they know before they are getting on the table.
Right.
And yeah, whatever happens during a session, it's all divinely guided. And we just make sure that people are receiving what they need to receive while they're on the table.
That's cool. That's cool.
And you're like the one-stop shop for Oklahoma intuitive spiritual health.
Feeling are us. But circling it back to the beginning of the conversation again about your move, what prompted you to go to Oklahoma?
My fiance lives here. And
good reason.
Yes,
Mhm.
he's
That
here
was
too,
man.
so, yeah. Yeah.
Or a woman, you know.
Or a woman.
Let's not be
Yes, that's true.
judgmental.
That's true.
Right? But
Yep. Yep. So
Okay.
so he is here, and I was feeling very called, like there was somewhere else I was needing to be. For the last few years, I was feeling like I was going to end up moving somewhere. And I ended up meeting him and had no intention of moving to Oklahoma. I actually loved living in Minnesota, all the trees and the water and the beauty that's there. And so when I ended up moving here, I'm like, okay, I heard you guys 2 years ago. I guess this is where I was supposed to go.
Mm.
So I'm
Yep.
here.
You're supposed to help them to awaken in
Yep.
the Bible Belt. So thank you for the service that you're providing, because that is not for the weak of heart.
But I've been wondering the whole time when we're talking about the chamber meetings,
Mhm.
and as a psychic and medium and channeler and intuitive, you have all these people that probably a lot of them are quite conservative and, maybe leaning kind of far one direction or another. Do you see like their energies and you're like, ooh, don't want to talk to that guy? Or like, do you get bombarded with like the different energies from people, or do you just shut it off and you're strictly business in those meetings?
So a lot of the time I will dim it so that I'm not completely shut off. I'm not one of the people who really likes to completely shut down. When everything's quiet, I panic because I'm so used to having so much chatter in the background. There haven't been any times where I've been like, oh, I'm not going to talk to that person. There have been times where I've noticed that somebody walks into the room and their energy is different than it normally is. And typically I end up finding out later that something was going on with them that day. They were having a really stressful moment, or somebody was in the hospital, or yeah. So usually it's not, I try really hard not to jump into people's energy fields without permission. I have very strong moral and ethical beliefs around what you can and can't do as a psychic. Because nobody wants you just jumping into their business and being like, hey, let me tell you all about yourself. But sometimes when you're walking into a room of people, it's hard not to see like the aura that's around them or the energy that they're carrying with and feel that energy. If I notice that something is off, I typically will shut down so that I'm not diving into those
Negative.
their personal business. Like if I find out their personal business later, that's good. Like I can have a conversation with them about it then, but I'm not going to energetically tap in and be like, oh, what's going on with them today? Like,
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Now, you also have a website that you sent over to us, spiritandherb.com, and that's where you have all your services there and things like that. Are these things that people can take advantage of remotely, or is most of your stuff really just, you got to come sit on my table?
nope. So really the only thing that I don't do remotely is massage.
And that wouldn't feel as good. And
Just
that's
do it.
with my
It would just be weird.
hands.
I was really looking forward to it.
Put the iPad on your back.
I wish I could, but I haven't quite figured that out yet.
Well, the world of virtual reality is right around the corner. You never know.
Yeah. So everything else I do online. I usually do things through Zoom, record it, and then they get a recording of all their sessions so they can go back and listen later.
Wonderful.
Because a lot of the time in the moment, as people are trying to heal something, you don't remember what was said.
Right.
So they receive what they were meant to receive in that moment, and then they can come back to it later and listen to the messages that were provided that are for
Gotcha.
later.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you have graciously extended a discount to Skeptic Metaphysician listeners. We are not going to reveal what that code is here. If you want to access the discounts, and it's not a 5% discount, it is a nice discount for them to check out your services. Go ahead and sign up for our community. It's totally free. You just have to be okay with us sending you an email once a week. We don't bother you. We don't sell you anything. We don't do anything like that. Just join our Skeptic Metaphysician community, and you will have access to not just Jenn's discount codes, but a lot of our past guest discount codes, so that you can experience their services for yourself in a much more cost-effective way. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yes, of course.
So we are woefully out of time, but I really want to hear about They Call Us Woo. What kind of topics? Is it similar to what we do, or do you just go deep on in the end of the woo?
Well, so I talk a lot because I'm chatty. Like I said, I like to teach. So we pick topics that people have asked us about. So it can be any woo-woo topic. We do have guests that come on sporadically. Lately, we've been doing a lot more of just Tammy and I talking. Tammy's my co-host. I've been in the woo-woo realm for a very long time. Tammy is newer to the woo, and she actually approached me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this podcast and I want you to be on it with me." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," because she told me she wanted it to be They Call Us Woo. And I was like, I was developing a product line that was all products that had woo in the title. So, but I hadn't launched it. And I was like, this is why, because they're going to go with our They Call Us Woo line. But so there's all kinds of weird woo puns that I have put on everything. I love puns. I love puns.
I love that.
Woo puns.
You gotta have Keanu on your website going woo.
I'm going to work on that. I'm
Nice.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But so we started talking about all the woo-woo topics, and we dive deep into a lot of things and talk about things that people can get a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit spicy about. But I'm willing to talk about those things from a spiritual perspective and a human perspective. And both Tammy and I are on the same page that we just want people to have the conversations and have a place to talk about these things and hear about these things where it feels safe for them.
That's fantastic. And I have just one more question before we go. We talk about getting out of the spiritual closet, which now I'm kind of thinking it's more like you're bringing them in, but the closet is like the TARDIS, so it's really huge inside. But what would you say to someone who is kind of really having these feelings, but just doesn't really want to get out there? They're concerned about judgment. What advice would you give to someone?
So I always tell people, just feel into your heart, like stay heart-centered. Most of the time when people are feeling fear, it's because they're on the verge of breaking through something. If they're scared that they're going to be judged, there's judgment within their heart too. Like I said earlier, we get mirrors. There's a mirror outside of us of what's going on inside. So if you're judging yourself about it and you feel like there's something wrong with it, you're going to receive that back. So the first step is always looking within yourself and figuring out where you're judging yourself and where you're not holding yourself responsible for the thoughts and the feelings that you have. And then find another person who is in a spiritual role and talk to them about it first. Once you start getting more comfortable talking to one person, it becomes easier. Everything's about practice. Everything's about experiencing life fully. And once we can start taking those steps to move forward, it's much easier for us to walk through the fears that we have.
Right.
Yep. And you also build that community and you can walk through it together.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. In the Hindu tradition, it is in fact, they say you cannot reach enlightenment without having a guru to help you lead the way. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Jenn, this has been fantastic. I've had such a fun time chatting with you. I know we're going to be friends for a long time after this.
Hey.
Wish you the very best there in Oklahoma or Minnesota, wherever you want to do your stuff. You have now officially gained a new subscriber on your show. I'm really looking forward to hearing that. And thank you so much for the service you're providing there. You're helping people wake up all across the state of Oklahoma and across the world now by being willing to come on the show and talk about the stuff that you do. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I'm so grateful that I could be here today.
We really enjoyed talking to you.
Pleasure has been ours, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
And a huge thank you to you. Yes, you, the person that hit play on this episode. We know that there are tons of options out there
and having you decide to come along on our journey of discovery with us is an absolute honor for us. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. If you did and you feel called to give back, we invite you to visit our website at skepticmetaphysician.com, where you can donate to the show or subscribe as a member through our Buy Me a Coffee campaign. Your support will go a long way towards allowing Karen and I to bring you these wonderful conversations and teachings in more and more robust ways. Of course, if contributing to the show content is what you're looking for instead, well, we'd love for you to contribute by sending us a voicemail or an email from our website, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting platform that supports them. Karen and I love hearing from those that are moved to message us. It truly does fuel our passion. You are the reason we do this show, and knowing what you like and don't like help us craft the very best show we can so that we can help raise the vibration of the planet together. Now, if you know someone who would benefit from hearing the message we're sharing on the show, do them and us a favor and share the show with them. It will help get the word out about us, and it might just change someone's life for the better. Well, that's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysician. Until then, take care.